Welcome to the What's Up News Network, being broadcast from Panama City Beach, Florida, home of the world's most beautiful beaches. I am Jim Free with Jim Free Realty. I apologize for being away for a few weeks. I developed a sinus infection that proved to be very difficult to get rid of. I was coughing continuously, which it makes it difficult to make a recording. We will attempt to give you what information we have on the real estate market. We are still not in a position to tell you with any certainty what the effect of the new administration will have on the long-term real estate market with any degree of confidence. The new administration has already eliminated thousands of jobs with executive action in the energy market. Those that no longer have jobs can't buy houses, automobiles, and other items that keep our economy going. On the local market, we have 161 Gulf front condos on the market out of approximately 11,000 total units. This is extremely low inventory, which makes it profitable for the seller. But also we have low interest rate, which makes it interesting for the buyer to buy at this time. So we have an excellent market going on in Panama City Beach, Florida. We have 188 single-family homes on the market, 22 of which are Gulf front. We have 50 attached single-family units for sale, 6 of which are Gulf front units. The very low inventory continues to push the price up. Interest rates are very low, makes it a good market for those planning on financing their purchase. We have a lot of apartments and single-family construction underway and new commercial business going up every day. So the market is really booming in Panama City Beach, Florida. We have had a lot of concern about what the new administration would or would not do with 1031 exchanges. But so far we have dodged a bullet, and according to some administration officials, the IRS Section 1031 deferred exchanges are safe for the time being. What has happened to our country? It's almost as if I woke up after being asleep for a long time and discovered that all these changes to our country. I never dreamed we would have so many public officials that had socialist leanings. I am the proud product of what was referred to as the greatest generation. Not that I would contributed to be the greatest generation, but my parents did. My entire family was involved in the World War II effort. My dad and his brothers were in the Army. My mom's brothers were in the Navy. My mom, my grandfather, and my great-grandfather worked in Pepperell Mills in Lindale, Georgia, providing needed military supplies. I was raised in this small town called Lindale, Georgia. It was a very patriotic community. During the war, this town furnished 439 men, boys, and girls to the war effort, which was 4 times as many as any other town that size in the country. You see, I have always been blessed. Except for the 4 years of the war, I have never been deprived of anything that I needed. And I don't think I was deprived of anything during the war except for not having my dad with me. Everybody worked together. Everybody had a victory garden. I remember my mother and my grandmother making dresses out of flour sacks and making quilts in the living room. So what has happened? Well, I want to talk about several issues. One, which is very important to me, is school shootings. There have been several school shootings in the past 21 years, starting with Columbine. 11 of those shootings have been classified as mass shootings. Blacksburg, Virginia college shooting, 33 people lost their life. Sandy Hook Elementary, 28, mostly first graders, were killed, and then 17 were killed in Parkland, Florida. Following the Columbine protocol, the officer didn't enter the building, but was waiting on the SWAT team to arrive. But if the officer had entered the building, there's a good chance the gunman would have been reached before they got to the library where many classmates were targeted. Gun-related violence in schools is a pervasive issue and has greatly increased in recent years, although school shootings have occurred since our country was being formed. The earliest known school shooting in the United States took place in 1764 and was known as the Potomac Rebellion School Massacre. Out of 13 children enrolled in the school, only 3 survived. After a school shooting, there is usually an attack on the Second Amendment and the questions about the mental health of the shooter or shooters. I was rather surprised to find out that there had been school shootings in the 1700s, and I'm quite sure they didn't have automatic or semi-automatic weapons then. When I was growing up, we never heard of or thought of school shootings. When I was in the elementary and junior high, I lived in Lindale, Georgia, which is east side of Booger Holler. As I entered high school, my family moved to Cave Spring area, west side of Booger Holler. The boys at the Cave Spring school were mostly farm boys, and at lunch they would play what I first thought was some type of soccer, but I soon found out it was more about kicking your opponent's shins than kicking the ball. My mom finally saved enough money to buy me a pair of brogans, which helped a lot. Most of us that had access to a car or truck that we drove to school also had a rifle or shotgun in the car, because most of the boys would go hunting after school, and some of the boys had access to M1 carbines, but we never thought about shooting up schools. Any school shooting is a tragedy, and we have to do everything that we can to prevent them. The Sandy Hook really bothers me because these were just babies that were slaughtered. There appears to be a lot of contributing factors, such as the use of drugs, mental health issue, video games, broken homes, bullying, and access to guns by students with mental or anger issues. The FBI continues to train law enforcement officers on how to respond. This is an evolving issue, and the protocol completely changed after the Columbine shooting. An officer on the scene now tries to confront the shooter without waiting for the SWAT team. We know that most of the victims are killed within the first few minutes, so there's no time to wait on reinforcements. If there is a resource officer on the campus or the first officer that arrives, he would now try to confront the shooter or shooters. Illegal drug use, and now we're legalizing the use of recreational drugs. How does anyone in their right mind think this is a good idea? We're losing thousands of lives each year because of drug abuse. Prayer has been taken out of schools since 1879, the Supreme Court has ruled on 12 cases that centered around the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment to the Constitution. Even though many of us think the Supreme Court has misinterpreted the Establishment Clause, that should not prevent us as parents, grandparents, from teaching our children the power of prayer. The breakup of the family. Socialism and communism cannot exist with a strong family unit and a strong church. So the progressives have done everything they can to destroy the family unit and the church. They have been able to do a lot of damage to the family unit. A lot of our children are being raised without a father or mother in the home. A lot of the folks are confused about their gender. You can clear that up by standing in front of a mirror. A clue would be whatever equipment you were born with is what you are. Destruction of the church. During the pandemic, some of the nation's governors and mayors have tried their best to destroy the church by limiting or eliminating the assembly of Christians. But they will never be successful because the church is not a building. It is a body of believers, and these governors and mayors are dictating from darkness, and the church is the light. Abortion. I believe January 22nd, 1973 will go down as the darkest day of American history. The Supreme Court of the United States issued a 7-2 decision in favor of Norma McCorvey. We would know her as Jane Roe, the fictitious name that was given to her in the lawsuit, along with a companion Georgia lawsuit, Doe versus Bolton, that held that women in the United States have a fundamental right to choose whether or not to have an abortion without excessive government restriction. Justice Harry Blackmun wrote the majority opinion. The court reasoned that outlawing abortion would infringe a pregnant woman's right to privacy for several reasons. Having unwanted children may force upon the woman a distressful life and future. It might bring imminent psychological harm. Caring for the child may tax the mother's physical and mental health, and because there may be distress for all concerned associated with the unwanted child. The court did reject the right of privacy as an absolute. They also recognize that the state has two compelling interests: the health of the mother and the health of the child. Interesting enough, the court in some cases recognizes the fetus as a child. Other cases they say a fetus is not a child. Justice Byron White and Justice William Rehnquist dissented in the opinion. Justice White wrote the dissenting opinion, and I will read that to you. I find nothing in the language or history of the Constitution to support the court's judgment. The court simply fashioned and announces a new constitutional right for pregnant women, and with scarcely any reason or authority for its action, invests that right with sufficient substance to override most existing state abortion statutes. The upshot is that people in the legislature of 50 states are constitutionally disentitled to weigh the relative importance of continued existence and development of the fetus, on the one hand, against a spectrum of possible impacts on the woman on the other hand. As an exercise of raw judicial power, the court perhaps has authority to do what it does today, but in my view, its judgment is improvident, extravagant exercise of the power of the judicial review that the Constitution extends to this court. It is interesting to note that Justice Harry Blackmun, who wrote the majority opinion, was nominated by Republican Richard Nixon, and Justice Byron White, who wrote the dissenting opinion, was nominated by Democrat John F. Kennedy. News media and social media. If you are discouraged or perhaps disheartened, I would suggest you have probably had a good dose of news media or social media. As Stuart Hamlin wrote in his song, "It Is No Secret," he wrote, "Do not be disheartened, for I bring hope to you. It is no secret what God can do." There are times we must take a stand. As Thomas Paine wrote almost 245 years ago, "These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will in the crisis shrink from the service of their country. But he that stands by it now deserves the love and thanks of man and women. Tyranny like hell is not easily conquered. Yet we have consolation with us. The harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph." We found out recently that some of the politicians turned out to be sunshine patriots. When the heat got on them, they shrank. Thomas Paine believed in a free press. and believed in ideas from all people being examined. In some circles, he's considered the father of journalism. You can only have a free press now if you own one. The father of journalism has been forsaken by his children. The modern-day press has forgotten this brilliant, lonely, socially awkward man that pioneered the concept of uncensored flow of ideas. The modern-day press and social media want to censor any idea that don't coincide with their ideas. This is really nothing new. At the end of Thomas Paine's life, he was shunned by the country he helped create. He was reviled as an infidel, forced to beg friends for money, denied the right to vote, refused burial in a Quaker cemetery. His grave was desecrated. His remains were stolen. A rhyme that was written near the time of Thomas Paine's death in 1809 read this way: "Poor Tom Paine, there he lies. Nobody laughs, nobody cries. Where he is gone, or how he fares, nobody knows and nobody cares." The last subject I want to talk about is some failures of the FBI. 47 years ago, I graduated from the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia. Last year, I was invited back to the Academy. Ivanette and I enjoyed the trip, and we visited White House the same week. I had planned my law enforcement career with the idea that it might include working for the FBI, and at that time, Mr. Hoover was only hiring agents that either had an accounting degree or a law degree. I had graduated from law school 6 years early. I never had any intention of practicing law, but I did think that one day I would probably go to work for the FBI. I worked very hard at the Academy and was a proud recipient of the J. Edgar Hoover Award for Scholastic Excellence. Mr. Hoover had died the year before I graduated. After he died, the liberals that claimed to represent the LGBTQ community tried to destroy his reputation because they claimed he was a homosexual. I have no idea whether he was or was not, and that subject is between he and the Lord. I had 37 years of public service, and 35 of those years were in local law enforcement. I'm still active in the FBI Academy Associates, and I have a lifetime membership in the International Association of Chiefs of Police and a lifetime membership in the Georgia Association of Chiefs of Police. I have known two of the directors on a personal level. Actually, we've only had 8 directors of the FBI. Clarence Kelly, I knew Mr. Kelly. He was the second director of the FBI, taken over right after Mr. Hoover passed away. And Louis Freeh, who was the 5th director of the FBI. I have great respect for the FBI, especially the rank and file. I have been disappointed in the leadership. There have been 8 directors of the FBI. All but 2 have worked for the Attorney General's office and Department of Justice. The 2 that had not worked for the Justice Department were the founder of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, and the second director, Clarence Kelly, who was a former FBI agent and also Kansas City, Missouri police chief. Louis Freeh and Clarence Kelly were the only former FBI agents to become directors. We can't blame everything on the leadership, and you can't give them a pass on it either. On July the 27th, 1996, the bombing of the Olympic Park in Atlanta took place. This put law enforcement in a frenzy, trying to identify the bomber and arrest the bomber. There was tremendous pressure, especially on the FBI, to solve the crime. The agents ended up targeting the wrong person, failed to follow proper procedure, and later were accused of leaking information to the press to bolster their position about the suspect. Between their failures to follow correct investigative procedures and the leaking information to the press, they destroyed the life of Richard Jewell. The agents responsible only received a censure and 5 days off without pay. We now know that leaking continued to the press. I don't blame the press for this because that's their job to find out information. But it's not the job of law enforcement to leak information to the press. We now know that leaking increased during the Mueller and the Comey leadership. Well, I've pointed the finger at a lot of people and a lot of organizations today, but just remember the old saying, when you're pointing a finger at someone, you have 4 pointed at yourself. It's time for us to stand up for our Lord and our country. Until we meet again, may God bless you, your family, and this great nation that we live in.